The truth shall set me free. Those words written by Stephen Avery in a letter to a local Fox station as numerous questions surround the murder case at the heart of the Netflix hit series Making a Murderer. Now, Stephen Avery's attorney, Dean Strang, telling Nightline that a big part of him worries Stephen may be guilty. This after vigorously defending him. Avery recently filing his latest challenge to his 2007 murder conviction, asking for a new trial after documentarians suggested that evidence may have been planted by police in order to obtain a conviction. Avery, along with his nephew, convicted in the 2005 murder of freelance photographer Teresa Halbach. You see her there. Well, joining us now to discuss the case is Jonna Spilbor, a former prosecutor and criminal defense attorney, and Brian Claypool, also a criminal defense attorney. Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you.
So the cast of characters here, it seems like a lot of folks maybe want their, 15 minutes of fame, but let's begin with the defense attorney, the former defense attorney. Mm-hmm. You know, he defends Stephen Avery, and now he's saying that he believes or worries that he may be guilty. Jonna?
Yeah, don't make too much of that, because here's something that most lay people don't realize, and that is criminal defense attorneys often do not know whether their clients are innocent or guilty, regardless of any verdict. And we do that because we don't live in a world of what they tell us. We live in a world of what the evidence says and what the elements of the crimes that they're accused of says. So we have to analyze it very analytically and very sort of cold, and not so much from a standpoint of what our client is going to tell us. One of the most interesting things I learned when I was a young attorney, greener than this dress, was that when I was being trained by more experienced lawyers, we would interview hardened criminals behind bars for hours and hours and hours. And I would walk out and say to my mentor, "You never asked him if he did it." And my mentor said to me, "You never do." And that was really something interesting to wrap my mind around years and years ago.
It's interesting. Well, Brian, Stephen Avery has filed an appeal in this case. What do you think the reason is that his former defense attorney would come out and say this now in terms of the timing?
Well, I don't know why his lawyer said that at this time. And I agree with John. I've represented a lot of defendants and criminal defendants, and it's a roller coaster ride. And at those moments where you might be doubting your client, that's when you need to be most vigilant in finding the evidence to exculpate or exonerate your client. This lawyer shouldn't be out in the public saying this about Stephen Avery right now. What he should be focusing on is helping Avery get a new trial. Because based on this documentary, if I was working in the U.S. Department of Justice, I would be polishing up my resume, because they might be out of a job over the DOJ, because I think this documentary did a great job of highlighting some of the possible planting of evidence, some of the possible malfeasant testing that was done, that had it been done properly, maybe Avery's free. For example, Heather, this blood testing, this testing of the alleged blood of Avery in the car, well, there's better testing now. If there's a preservative in that blood, which we think there might be, then that in itself should be grounds for a new trial for Avery.
I do want to mention another person that is in this documentary, and that is his ex-girlfriend. And then we'll talk a little bit more about the evidence. Jody Stokowski, she in the documentary said that she supported him, right? And she said that she did not think that he was guilty, but now she's reversed course, and she's come out and she said she does think that he possibly did this and that he was abusive to her. So why the change in her story as well, Jonna?
Dollar signs. You know, you have a person here who you really can't trust anything that's coming out of her mouth. She's not a lawyer. She's not a prosecutor. She's not an investigator. She's an ex-girlfriend with 5, 6, or 7 prior convictions for drunk driving. So if she thinks now that there's an opportunity to make money by coming out and saying he's guilty, since the large majority of the population seems to think otherwise, then that's what she's going to say. She can be manipulated by anybody and anything. Yeah. I would disregard what she has to say. And the
point also being that Avery, in this letter that he wrote to the local Fox affiliate, he said that he believed that she's now reversing course and has a different story because she's been paid off by authorities. Brian, going along the lines of evidence being planted and shady things happening.
Well, Heather, look, there are colossal red flags in this case. I've been in the trenches on some civil rights cases involving law enforcement, and a lot of times usually only have like one piece of evidence. Like, well, maybe I had a case in Fresno once where there was a knife allegedly planted near a victim who had been shot and killed. Here, you have more than that. You've got a bullet that was found after several times looking for a bullet in a garage. You've got a pair of car keys in her house where after 6 times of searching for that, nobody found it. Then all of a sudden, they found it. In the first sexual assault case involving Avery, you had the local police department go over to the Manitowoc Sheriff's Department and say, hey, we think somebody else did this, and they didn't even investigate that purpose.
Yeah,
and now you've got this blood. And now you've got this blood sample that was tampered with. 4 things right there.
Yeah, and
red flags.
we should mention the case that you were talking about. He served 18 years for a wrongful conviction on rape. Thank you both for joining us. We appreciate your insight today.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
You bet. Thanks, Heather.